24th ayah, and it ends until the 147th ayah. Last night in the last 4 rakahs, Surah Nisa was already started, and the beginning of Surah Nisa, it starts and it talks about the entirety of Surah Nisa. It covers many different ahkam. Surah Nisa is a Madani surah. What that means is that the surah was revealed when Rasulullah ﷺ had already migrated to Medina. So the bulk of all the Madani surahs, they cover topics that are related to ahkam, to rulings. The surahs that were revealed in Makkah, they mostly focus about iman, coming to Islam, believing in the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Tawheed. The Madani surahs, they focus on ahkam. Now, Surah Nisa, why is it called Surah Nisa? Is because most of the ahkam that are talked about in Surah Nisa, they focus about the ahkam of women, the rulings that pertain to women. And Surah Nisa, it starts first talking about the ahkam of women, and then later it goes more vast. Like, for example, it starts first about the zawja, the women folk of the house. And then it goes to the people, the entire household itself, not just the husband and wife, but the entirety of the household. How should we have mu'ashara? How should we deal with our family? And then it broadens, and then it talks about the Islamic society. And then in the end, it ends with the kuffar and the munafiqeen, outside of Islam, the enemies of Islam, outside of the Muslim countries. And a little backstory: why was Surah Nisa revealed? What was the ahwal? What were the conditions like in the Arab country, in the Arab lands before Islam came? Is that women had no value. After Islam came, women were given value and they were given izzah, they were given dignity. In Jahiliyyah, before Islam came, women were treated as commodities. People, when they would have daughters, they would bury them alive. People, when they were married, they wouldn't give importance to their spouses. The women were treated as inheritance. A father would pass away and the son would inherit the father's wife. They had many different wives, so just because she's the wife of the father doesn't mean the wife is necessarily that person's mother. So they would then inherit the wives, and they would do whatnot. They would give their father's wives to other people for nikah, and it was basically women had no respect in society. And then Islam came, and in this surah, women's rights, they encompass mahr, inheritance, and to deal with them with kindness. And especially, it's ajib, we see how the lugha, how the language of the Quran is all encompassing. The entirety of the subject of inheritance is encompassed within these couple of ayahs of Surah Nisa. And it's a little latifa, a little side note. Many huffaz, it's very mashhur, it's very known amongst them that Yusikum Allah is a very tough page to memorize and to recite, especially in Taraweeh. But after knowing the ahkam, after knowing the meaning of these ayahs, then it's very easy for them to memorize. So we should all try to learn the meaning behind the Quran. Whatever we know, if we learn the meaning behind it, then it'll be easier for us to remember. And then, so now after we have this overview, I'll go into a couple of ayat mentioned in Surah Nisa. So first, I'm going to be talking about the 32nd ayah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, بَعْدَ أَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ بِسْمِ اللَّهِ الرَّحْمَنِ الرَّحِيمِ وَلَا تَتَمَنَّوْا مَا فَضَّلَ اللَّهُ بِهِ بَعْضَكُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ لِلرِّجَالِ نَصِيبٌ مِمَّا اكْتَسَبُوا وَلِلنِّسَاءِ نَصِيبٌ مِمَّا اكْتَسَبْنَ. So the sabab, I'll translate this later, but the sababun nuzul, or the reason for revelation for this ayah, is that Salama radiallahu anha, she complained to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. When you hear the name of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, all of us should say sallallahu alayhi wasallam. That, what did she complain? She said that men, they have this fadila, they have this virtue that they get to go out and fight in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They get to do jihad. However, the women were not allowed, we're not able to go out and fight in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so we are not able to get this benefit. So she complained that, how can we also get this benefit? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He revealed this ayah. What does this ayah say? It says, don't wish for what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given virtue to other people over yourself. Men لِلرِّجَالِ نَصِيبٌ مِمَّا اكْتَسَبُوا. Men have a certain virtue, and women also have a certain virtue. So it's important for us to realize that whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, that's khair for us. We shouldn't go and think, oh, what if this happened, what if that happened? In a hadith it comes that the word if is the word of shaitan. Shaitan uses this word if to put waswasas, to put evil thoughts into our minds. And slowly, shaitan starts slowly, and then he takes us further away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in the 43rd ayah of Surah Nisa, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لَا تَقْرَبُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَأَنْتُمْ سُكَارَى حَتَّى تَعْلَمُوا مَا تَقُولُونَ. So this ayah is talking about the forbidding of khamr, the forbidding of alcohol in Islam. And alcohol, before it was forbidden, it took many different stages. The first, it was mubah, it was completely permissible. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said, يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْخَمْرِ وَالْمَيْسِرِ قُلْ فِيهِمَا إِثْمٌ كَبِيرٌ وَمَنَافِعُ لِلنَّاسِ وَإِثْمُهُمَا أَكْبَرُ مِنْ نَفْعِهِمَا. That the people, they ask you about alcohol and gambling, so tell the people that there's a very big ithm, there's a very big harm in them, and there's some benefit as well. But their evil, the harm outweighs the good that they have. And then after that, there was partial prohibition, which is this ayah, that when salah time comes, don't drink. And then after this ayah in Surah Al-Ma'idah, Allah Ta'ala tells us, He uses the words, رِجْسٌ مِّنْ عَمْلِ الشَّيْطَانِ فَاجْتَنِبُوهُ لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ. That this, He mentions other things too, but focusing on alcohol, rijsun is something that's very filthy, it's dirty. If you have a pot of milk and there's some excrement or something in there, we won't drink any of the milk. So similarly, we shouldn't even go near alcohol. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after this ayah, there's another sabab al-nuzul for the ayah after this. That is that Abu Sufyan, he asked Ka'b ibn al-Ashraf, one of the leaders of the Jews. So Abu Sufyan at the time was the leader of Quraysh. And he asked the leader of the Jews that, Ka'b, you know how to read and write. So tell me who is right, Muhammad or us? So the Jew Ka'b, he told Abu Sufyan, tell me about your two religions. So Abu Sufyan said that we slaughter animals for the Hujjaj, the people that come to Mecca and do Hajj. And 7:30, right? I was thinking I had to end 7:25, so I was rushing a little bit so we have more time. So Abu Sufyan, he says that we slaughter animals for the Hujjaj and we give them water to drink. Many of us know the trials, how hot the Arab summer is and how tough of an ordeal it is to go for Hajj. Many people die every year. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the opportunity to go and do Hajj. Ameen. So Abu Sufyan, he tells Ka'b that, we do khidmah, we service the people that come to the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we're hospitable to the guests, and we populate the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Kaaba. As for Muhammad, what does he do? He has left the religion of his forefathers, and he has cut the ties of kinship. So then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He revealed this ayah that أَلَمْ تَرَ إِلَى الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا نَصِيبًا مِنَ الْكِتَابِ, that do you not see the people, they have knowledge of the book. And what do they do with this knowledge? They sell it. And what do they buy with it? They buy misguidance, and they want to misguide other people from the truth. So it's very mashhur, it's very famous that the Yahud, when the Quran was revealed and Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam came to Medina, Medina had a large number of Jews. And the Jews, they would know that they recognized the qualities of the next prophet. In their books, it came that the next prophet that's going to come he's going to have these certain characteristics. And when Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam he came, he met all of these characteristics, 100%. And what did they do when they realized these characteristics? They denied Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So they knew the truth, but they still rejected it. And in the end, Allah Ta'ala, He talks about the hypocrites, the munafiqun. So we talked first about the household, then we talked about the Islami mu'ashara, the Islami environment, society, and now we're talking about the kuffar and the disbelievers. So Allah Ta'ala, He says that the worst of the people are the disbelievers. But even worse than them are the hypocrites. Allah Ta'ala, He says, إِنَّ الْمُنَافِقِينَ يُخَادِعُونَ اللَّهَ وَهُوَ خَادِعُهُمْ إِذَا قَامُوا إِلَى الصَّلَاةِ قَامُوا كُسَالَى يُرَاءُونَ النَّاسَ وَلَا يَذْكُرُونَ اللَّهَ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. That the munafiqun, the hypocrites, what do? يُخَادِعُونَ اللَّهَ. They try to deceive Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَهُوَ خَادِعُهُمْ. This is one of the khasiyas of the Bab al-Mufa'ala, that they are trying to do something, but Allah is actually doing it. They're trying to deceive Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is actually more successful in that. Allah ta'ala, He doesn't deceive, but whatever the Jews are trying to do, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does it back to them. So surely the hypocrites, they try to deceive Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but Allah leaves them in deception, meaning the hypocrites themselves, they fall into their own deception. They aren't able to accept what is the truth, and they reject it. And when they stand up for salah, they stand up in laziness, and they stand up only to show off to others that, oh, look how long I'm standing up in qiyam, in tahajjud, whatnot. And they don't remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala except for a little bit. مُذَبْذَبِينَ بَيْنَ ذَلِكَ لَا إِلَىٰ هَؤُلَاءِ وَلَا إِلَىٰ هَؤُلَاءِ وَمَنْ يُضْلِلِ اللَّهُ فَلَنْ تَجِدَ لَهُ سَبِيلًا. That these hypocrites, Allah ta'ala, He's telling us the kayfiyah, how they are. He's saying that they waver between this and that. They're not fully disbeliever, and they're not fully in the fold of Islam either. They're in between. And whoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lets go astray for him, you shall never find a way. That these people, they'll never find the haqq. And then Allah Ta'ala, He tells us, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لَا تَتَّخِذُوا الْكَافِرِينَ أَوْلِيَاءَ مِن دُونِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ أَتُرِيدُونَ أَن تَجْعَلُوا لِلَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ سُلْطَانًا مُبِينًا. He is giving us nasiha. He's telling the believers that don't take other disbelievers for friends instead of the believers. We have, mashallah, if we look around us, we see that there's so many Muslimin, we have so many brothers. But unfortunately, what happens is when we're staying in the work environment, when we're not coming to the masjid, then what happens is a lot of our friends turn out to be disbelievers. And however good they are, at the end of the day, they don't believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when we come to the masjid and we find friends in the masjid, then we'll find that has more of an effect. It has a better effect for us and for our iman. And Allah Ta'ala, He says, إِنَّ الْمُنَافِقِينَ فِي الدَّرْكِ الْأَسْفَلِ مِنَ النَّارِ وَلَنْ تَجِدَ لَهُمْ نَصِيرًا. That surely the hypocrites, they're in the lowest level of fire, and you'll never find a helper for them. And a couple of hadith relating to munafiqeen is that Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, he narrates a hadith that ayatul munafiqi thalath. There's 3 signs to spot a hypocrite. إِذَا حَدَّثَ كَذَبَ. If he speaks, he lies. وَإِذَا وَعَدَ أَخْلَفَ. And if he makes a promise, he goes against that promise. وَإِذَا تُمِنَ خَانَ. And I'll end with a beautiful story of Hanzala radiallahu anhu, who was a sahabi. And he was looking at himself and his iman, and he saw that when he was with the company of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would have an elevated level of iman. But when he went to his house, he said that he saw that his iman was less, so he thought he was a hypocrite. So when he asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that this is normal. So we should also look and do muhasabah of ourselves, that how is our iman. May Allah Ta'ala give us tawfiq to do amal upon what has been said. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala al-mursalin.